Hey YouTube. This time around I want to talk to you about how I made probably the most ridiculous murder mystery game, and not the board game one that I've been showing off a little bit recently. I want to talk about the Steam game. But before we get into the particulars of it, I want to do a little bit of a run up to how we got to this point. Starting out with a project that you might know me for, which is Winning Love by Daylight, which is a visual novel about teen superheroes. And the way that I got into that was during the pandemic. I was like, well, I might pick up Ren'Py as a way to create companions to the board games that I was working on, where I can engage people in the story. And the goal behind making Winning Love by Daylight was to eventually create a board game in the same universe, the same characters and stuff like that, because you can reuse the art in both projects quite easily. And Winning Love by Daylight ran on for a long time, and we never got a board game. There's a whole bunch of other reasons behind that, but I'm happy just to keep it as a visual novel for now. Now, after that, I had an opposite project. I had Spirits of Carter Mansion, which had come and gone before this time, and wasn't successful on Kickstarter, and just kind of didn't really go anywhere. But I had all this art for it that hadn't been used before. And so I was like, well, what if I made a kind of a puzzle haunted house kind of a game where you're tasked with exploring the house. And I did that, and it was very complicated and not very fun to play. But the process of making it was really, really interesting and really, really complicated. It's like 100,000 lines of checking a single flag and all this kind of stuff. But what did interest me about that was I was able to add a story to a game that didn't existingly have a story, and I was able to give some like backstory to all the events and the stuff that like led to it being a haunted mansion. I wrote this like big diary thing for one of the characters that you slowly unlock as you play through the game, like the pages fill out. And I thought that was really interesting, but like the core play part of it was not super fun, because it was like a stunted text-based adventure that required you to write a map, which not many people like doing. And then we come to Murders at Tilwood's Manor. Now, Murders at Tilwood's Manor, the Steam game, I wanted to build differently from the board game. So the board game, you aren't an active participant. You're kind of witnessing the events as an all-powerful third party, and you're able to nudge things to resolve in a way that benefits you because you have secret goals. In the video game, I'm like, okay, you are a guest. You are one of the roles. Like, you are the investigator, and it's your goal to find out who the murderer is. And the murderer could be randomly any guest that's not you. So first thing we have to do is find out how to randomly determine a murderer. And then from there, the murderer has to randomly kill people, which could include you, but can't include themselves. And so I'm already like making all these complex decision trees and what it can be. And so it was like, okay, how do we build all of these things? And also, how do we build all these things with a lack of skills that I have? So I'm going to give you a quick sneak peek at some of the things here. First of all, this is all of the negative flags defined. So whenever you use like make a choice or pass a certain point and the game needs to remember that information, you define a flag. What additionally this has is 26 dice, that's what the AAA, BBB, and all that kind of stuff is. Whenever I need the game to randomly determine a number, I would use one of these. And I've made 26 different ones so it doesn't overlap too much and get confusing. But so we have that. I'm just going to like slowly scroll through all of the different flags we've got here, because there's a ton and it goes on for some time. But like all of these are used for like many different things. Like for example here, the wager stuff, you score points by guessing how many guests will survive at the end. And like the longer it takes for you to solve the mystery, the more guests will die, so your maximum score is less. And there's like all this other stuff. So there's like all these flags, right? So every time something happens in the game needs to remember it. And like one of the other ones that I think, like for example, this is what character the player is playing as. Like for example, play Carter means you're playing as Lord Carter, and like this tracks who's dead. This tracks who we know isn't the murderer. This tracks who just died, which is slightly different to who's already dead, because if you're in the second hour, who just died is who you're going to be talking about rather than the first victim. What room you are in right now, and then what room the people are in, because there's a map I'll show you in a little bit. There's a map that matches the map of the board game where certain guests are in, and if you want to go and talk to a specific guest, you can go and join them in that room. Otherwise, a random guest will come and talk to you. It's like I put all these complicated things in now. We're gonna skip past some. It's down to like here somewhere. It's still character deck. Oh, I didn't actually go very far. I want to go like this. Towards the bottom. This is still dialogue. No, way towards the bottom. Okay, here we go. So someone's just died. I'm playing like the gameplay is procedurally top to bottom, right? And someone's just died, and we are talking about it. So this means that like a person won't show up if they've been. Oh yeah, you are here. It shows you, and you've been alibied because you know you didn't see yourself kill someone. And then there's a bit of conversation about where you were during the murder, and then you alibi for whoever you were just talking to. And then you start making random accusations. So, and it goes through and like everyone gets to say one thing one time. And then each person has like a different set of accusations based on what the game randomly determines it to be. So for example, here it's going to roll the dice to like randomly select another different person, but it will re-roll if it's incorrect, if that makes sense. So like the game can't produce false information for you unless it was intended to do so. So it will check every time. For example, if we come down here, anytime it says jump to the accusations, it means like, oh, I can't accuse this dead person of being the murderer, so we're going to jump and we're going to re-roll. And so it's basically like a pachinko machine, just like zigzags all the way through the thousands of possible different options that it could be, and selects the correct route, which means that every single possible outcome is in this document. Which is a bit crazy. And I want to get into a bit more about why. So like first of all, that was a design challenge for me to come through and break. But I also wanted to create this project as something of a marketing asset where it's a story companion that attaches to the board game. Because the board game does storytelling in a different way. The board game does storytelling where you're kind of the director and you're setting up specific characters to do different things, because you can choose who's the murderer, you can choose who's the investigator. But also like the gameplay of itself, you're moving the guests around the mansion board, and you have some say in who lives and who dies. So you're kind of, setting up this scenario as best you can to try and make a particular story play out that benefits you or interests you or is fun or whatever, right? In the video game, I wanted it to be able to tell the backstory of the characters, because that's something you didn't really get as much from the board game, so that you can get to know the different characters, and so together, when you're telling stories in the board game about different characters, and now you know more about them from the video game, you're able to create more fun and interesting things rather than it being kind of flat and you're adding to it. And so in this way, it allows people to explore more about like the universe and the different characters and how the different things come together as a way to get immersed in the property, like not specifically the board game or specifically the video game, but like the property or like the overall, like, I don't know, mythos is kind of wrong. So like rumor mongering is one of the big kind of like the mechanics, kind of like a lot of people are known to spread rumors about each other. In the board game, it's a big mechanic in how you learn things about the different characters, where they are and stuff like that. But for example, Lionel Ward, one of the characters that I quite like, is so prolific at rumor mongering that he's been accused of being a psychic. And like that fun piece of information means that if you're interacting with rumors and stuff with that character in the board game, you go, haha, that's like a funny like thing how it comes together. Same as like Lady Tillwoods' favorite room in her mansion is the atrium, which is literally just like an indoor fish pond. And she's like, if this room didn't exist, I like would hate the entire mansion. Like there wouldn't be a room left in it that I would like. And so like putting her in the atrium like is a fun story beat, you know. So there's this kind of coexisting design here where you're trying to. The board game is like a really specifically mechanically driven designed creature where the way that you interact with it is you engage with the mechanics and it spits out fun, right? But it doesn't spit out story. The story is what you put onto it, and then you are able to recount later as fun things that happen. Like a lot of player versus player games kind of do this, where it's like, wow, I tried out this thing and it worked really well, or I was really surprised that I was able to pull this off, and like they're the fun stories that you tell people. And then in the video game, it's like, here is a story provided to you, but also it's not like a story. It's like a pachinko machine. So every time you play it, it's going to be different. And in the way that you play with it, the story that you get from it is unique, but also the things that you learn about the characters overall are the same. But what the characters did in that session is unique, if that makes sense. I know it is kind of a complicated project, but the idea is to hopefully sometimes in the future to develop more of the video game. I know it's something that I have kind of put aside while I've been focusing on the board game, but I want to put more into it, and we're going to have hopefully more to show off for that when the Kickstarter for the board game does come. So definitely check out some of that stuff. I just wanted to make this video today to talk a little bit about the coexisting design between digital and physical, because I think it is quite interesting. Getting a product up on Steam and getting a lot of eyeballs at it is really easy, but getting a board game and creating a physical project and getting a lot of eyeballs on it is very difficult. So some middle ground here where you can find a bunch of people that overlap in that space and are interested in the property and are interested in the projects now, would be, you know, hopefully really prosperous. So that's kind of it. I just wanted to jam about that a little bit to give, I don't know, some of the devlog viewers of my channel an idea of the kind of things that I'm thinking about when it comes to putting my projects together, and maybe give you some inspiration on things to try out, because Vampire is really easy. It's just like writing a screenplay. Just what I've done has made it really hard for myself. So if you just wanted to write a big story that's some of the background of the characters, like if you have a card game that's just a bunch of characters in it, you could just go and write this whole big interactive story for your players to go and learn about the different characters in it and release it for free, and then that acts as a, you know, part of your marketing funnel. So yeah, that's kind of it. If you are interested in some of the devlog content, or you are interested in Murders at Tillwoods Manor, go and check out some of these buttons. I'll put some buttons up on the screen that will help you find some more of that stuff. We just recently demoed at a convention that showed off the game. The nice, sexy looking final manufacturer sample. So definitely go and check that out if you're interested in the board game. Otherwise, I will put a link to the Steam game in the description. You can go and check it out because it's free, right? And you can go and see exactly what that ridiculous line of code text actually translates to yourself, and try and get the murder on, which is apparently really difficult. I've not encountered many people actually able to do it. So try that out, see how that goes, and then let me know. Come back and be mad at me in the comments because my game's too hard or something. I don't know. But hopefully I'll have more exciting things to show you soon.